I was excited for two things this past weekend. One, the Booker Shortlist announcement, which is what we're going to talk about today. I watched it yesterday. I'm really happy about it. I know opinions are mixed, but I personally was excited to see the books that they picked. The other one is going to have to wait because I was thinking I might be able to wear a sweater this week, and yet, even though it is Booker season, I'm told that it's fall. It's definitely the end of September. It's going to be 85 degrees today. I have 5 of the 6 books here. That's too heavy. I have 5 of the 6 books. I don't have The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny yet. I pre-ordered it, but it was only, I think, widely published yesterday. This video will be a little bit more reaction-y in the sense that I'm going to riff. I don't have an outline or anything like that. I just wanted to talk about the books that I have read a little bit, and then, yeah, my reactions as a whole, because I was watching the live stream and I thought it was great. It's the first time I've really participated at this level, so the way that it was produced and the structure of everything was really fun to me, and I was working and then watching it at the same time. And the comments that were going on in the section where people were reacting were just kind of bananas. Also, I've seen other people doing this with their microphones, and I thought it'd be nice to have scissors, unless it falls off and I stab myself in the face. Anyway, yeah, some of the comments were just really charged for, I feel like, what we were discussing, which was books. Yes, it's a prestigious award, and I know that it can change an author's life. So I can understand being disappointed if a book that you really loved didn't make the final cut. I feel like these judges are doing a lot of work. It's not like they are just making off-the-cuff decisions, and I know that there's a whole conversation about, oh, were these choices safe writ large, or were the shortlist choices safe? Look, I don't know. It's easy to sit here and try to understand all of the motivations going behind something. Of the books that were shortlisted that I read, I just genuinely enjoyed the books. And the ones that I've read that didn't make it, I'm looking at you, Endling, I know why people liked it, but how do I say this? Because I feel like if you have a different opinion, I don't know why we have to be so black and white, why it has to be such a binary world. But I also reviewed Endling in my last recap video, and I enjoyed the story, but it was not a perfect book. And I wonder if some of the reason people feel so strongly about that book is because of the timeliness of it, in the sense that the Ukrainian war with Russia is such a present part of that book in a metafictional capacity. In my review, I made a point of saying that I really was enjoying the story. I just felt deceived is too strong of a word, but there was a loop thrown that I didn't think worked for the book. It just felt like a totally different book, and I understand what was happening. You can understand something and not necessarily feel like it makes for a great reading experience. And other people obviously very clearly had a different experience. I just don't think that, to the extent people might be giving the book more credit than it deserves simply because of the subject matter that it was tackling or what was informing that structure of the book. That's what I'm curious about, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody who genuinely loved the book and has positive things to say and might persuade me of something different. I hope I've been really clear on here that I like to have my mind changed. I don't know that it would change even if I reread that book. And I can't say the same for some of the other ones. And I did read something yesterday as I was going through all of the, reactions and things like that, that the judges have to read these books multiple times. And some of the books lend themselves to a really enriching experience on a reread, whereas some of the other ones don't. I haven't read Seascraper. I know a ton of people are really sad that Seascraper didn't make the cut. I guess I'll reserve an opinion, but I can understand that if on a reread, maybe it didn't hold up quite as well for all of the judges. And keep in mind, they're trying to convince each other, you know, they're advocating for different books. And so there might be one or more judges on the panel who really wanted Seascraper on there, and it just didn't work because of how the whole judging process goes. I don't want to ramble on too much. This is what happens when I don't have an outline. I have reviewed Flashlight already, and then this past month, so what will be in my next reading recap are The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovitz. I have not read Audition yet. I finished Flesh by David Soloy. And then I also read, this is going to be real clunky, The Land in Winter by Andrew Miller. So I have read 3 more, and honestly my whole strategy was I was just trying to get the chunkier books out of the way first, knowing that I was going to have to read The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny. Somehow that seemed to work. The Booker judges give their opinions of all of the books, and they identify the themes and various commonalities that all of the books share. But as I was watching the live stream yesterday, I just jotted down a few things that I noticed. So I think some of them will overlap and maybe some of it is redundant. I wrote down Reckoning of the Past. I think that is really apparent with Flashlight, The Land in Winter. And then I can't really, again, I can't speak to Sonia and Sunny, and I can't speak to Audition, but certainly Flashlight and The Land in Winter, there's elements, parts of those stories deal with real things that happened in the past, and it's probably more true for Flashlight than for The Land in Winter, though there is a very present feeling in both of those books of the trauma of memory and reckoning with the collective misdeeds that we were a part of, either directly or indirectly. Identity is definitely a theme, again, Flashlight, and I think from what I've heard about Audition and Sonia and Sunny, that probably will come into play in those 2 books as well. Authenticity versus performance, you could probably make an argument that that's true for all of the books. Certainly, I think on a more subtle level, The Rest of Our Lives deals with this more overtly in Flesh, and then I think even more so will be true in Audition. Again, this is from what I understand. I think masculinity is a big one. Now, I was not super excited, to say the least, to read Flesh by David Soloy. The reason is because, and I mentioned this in my birthday book haul video, that the topic of masculinity is just not one that's really interesting to me at the moment. I am not trying to be unsympathetic or to put blinders on. It's like masculinity has gotten some sort of marketing fund, and I don't know. It's just, I just hear about it a lot. It's a topic that seems to be sort of trend led, and I don't know that we should be making a trend of things that are rooted in real human world problems. Masculinity and what it is to be a man, that definitely is a meritorious discussion to have. But I've just grown a little bit fatigued of making it into something that maybe it's not. That said, in that video, I said, I don't want to be ignorant or just, think about my problems or decide what is a problem or what isn't a problem, whatever. There's a reason why these authors have chosen to write books about these topics, and I am interested to hear what they have to say. And again, if you can change my mind, I'm really happy to have that happen. So Flesh and the Rest of Our Lives both deal with these topics, but in different ways. Flesh was a less enjoyable reading experience for me personally, not because the book was bad. The book was well written. I understood what the author was doing. It moves really quickly. I will have maybe more eloquent, maybe not, talking points when I do my actual review of it. I just felt extremely bummed out by it. It was like every time I picked up the book at night, I would kind of groan and my husband, at least at first, before the production went on too long, he was like, well, what's the matter? And I said, this book is just so depressing. And yesterday, one of the authors, I think it was Kylie Reed, she mentioned how Flesh had maybe the best opening chapters of all of the books. And I know what she's talking about. I don't know if I agree that it's the best. It certainly starts with a bang. I would call it a bang of a bummer. But yeah, it hits the ground running and then the pace really slows down. The passivity of our main character became, I don't know, it was infectious in a way, because then I felt like I was being a very passive reader. Like, I don't care about what is happening to this guy, because does he care about what's happening to him? And I say all of that with the mindset that maybe on a reread, having gone through the experience the first time, I would be able to get something a little bit more, something a little bit different from it. Despite the sparseness of the book and of the prose, I think that there is something richer just beneath the surface there. And so for that reason, I think it's a valid pick, and I understand it. Feeling a little bit teacher's petty, but I respect their opinions, and I respect the time that it takes to do this. I can barely read like 5 books in a month, so granted this is all they're doing, I get it, but still, you can do a whole lot of other things besides read a book, and I love that we're talking about reading as much. Okay, I would talk about that stuff forever. The other one that I haven't reviewed yet is The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovitz. I really liked this book. I think I'm in the minority. Most people didn't like this book, and I feel like this is the one that people think Seascraper or Endling should have been on, and clearly I disagree about Endling. I think it was a very good pick for a long list, and I'm glad that I read it. I just don't know that I agree it should have made the short list. If it had, I wouldn't have been mad about it, though. I would have said, good job, Maria Riva. But The Rest of Our Lives, and I wonder if this is also like an age thing. I have no idea, what is the age range of people who are reading the Booker Prize nominees? I'd be curious to know, because I feel like even though this book talks about masculinity and it's about the reckoning that life will do with you when you reach a certain age, and that age seems to be, like your 40s, maybe your early 50s, because you are at a point in your life where you can't do the same things that you were doing when you were in your teens and 20s and even your 30s. You just don't have the energy. Your body doesn't bounce back as much, and you are starting to get set in your ways. I feel this right now very much for myself, and then for my friend group as we are approaching these years. So I related to it. The feedback that I saw, I think from maybe it was Sarah Jessica Parker or whoever was doing their reactions to this book or explaining why this book made the shortlist, is that this character was just so extremely relatable. You can make an argument probably for all of these books, save Flashlight, in my opinion, that plot is second, in some cases very second, to the character development. And that's true. I think that's a fair thing to say. Plot exists in all of them. I mean, we don't really have a book without plot, so I don't know if I agree with it wholeheartedly. And the plot of The Rest of Our Lives is we have this middle-aged husband and father. The backstory is that years earlier, his wife had cheated on him. When he found out about it, he made this sort of private resolution or promise to himself that when their daughter turned 18 and went off to college, that he would leave his wife. So the book is opening with exactly, we've arrived at the moment. The daughter is going to college, and now he has a choice to make. The difference is that he's a different man than he was when he made this promise to himself. First of all, it was years earlier, and you know what happens? Sometimes we get real complacent with our situations, and the amount of energy that it would take to change our circumstances, especially in a marriage, especially I imagine where you have kids, it's just like, oh my God. It's just a lot of work. And I feel like the book taps into that mindset so well. to add on to that, he's having some problems with his career, with his employment specifically. And he's also having some real health issues that he hasn't quite gotten to the bottom of yet. So all of these things are kind of working against him, and yet he is trying to find his path forward. And he's doing that literally by what ultimately ends up being a road trip book, going to these different people's places. And it's like he's making these pit stops in history, trying to touch base with who he was, to find out who he is now and what the next phase of his life should be. But life really has a way of interrupting that. And I felt that the book so quietly, but so accurately tapped into that. And so for that reason, and then I think a commonality with all of the books on this list, the next big theme that I saw with all of these choices was this quiet despair of domestic life that happens to people. I mean, we're all living in our own worlds. We're all doing our own thing. We're all, for the most part, trying our best to make the most of this life that we have. And yet we are faced with suffering. We are faced with joys and grief and everything in between. And we're capturing those moments in all of these books in very specific contexts that really get to the heart of where does our humanity come from? Where does it shine? Where does it falter? And I can say all of the books do that in a really accomplished way, and I really appreciated it. If I'm going to make an argument for the rest of our lives, I think that maybe more than any of the books that I read, the rest of our lives did that in a way that most people can really relate to. Finally, and this is hardly a revelation, but related to what I just said about the quiet despair and the humanity, what I think all of the books, at least that I've read, have tapped into really well, and I think have brought to the fore really well, is the conflict of the human heart. From at least the little that I know, that idea was coined by William Faulkner, and I think it was really popularized by George R.R. Martin when he was talking about writing in general, I think, but maybe specific to the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones books. But the conflict of the human heart is described as the inner turmoil caused by conflicting desires, loyalties, or emotions within a person, such as the struggle between love and duty or between ambition and morality. This is just a timeless literary theme, and I think it's probably more, it operates more like an umbrella, right, through which to explore all these other smaller or more specialized themes, like of masculinity or despair or identity and et cetera, et cetera. The Booker Prize, I feel like the summary of the shortlist made a point of saying all of these authors are at the top of their game. They're all very established, very in command of their craft. And I think that that's true, particularly when it comes to exploring this specific idea and how each of them differently, but there is definitely a commonality in how they're doing this, with really giving us access to their characters and to the interiority of their lives and their thought processes and how they are grappling with whatever the conflict that's going on in their lives at the given moment is. And given, how broad the time periods are, we have, 1960s England and post-war England, I guess, contemporary times with the rest of our lives, and Flashlight, spans all kinds of genres in the 20th, or not genres, but all generations in the 20th century. Flesh is similar in that respect. They're just doing a lot of heavy lifting here, covering a lot of ground. And so when you think of it in that way, all of these things change, times change, the political events change, the concerns of the times change, but what stays constant across all of these varying landscapes? And not just time, but different places, right? We're in Korea, we're in Japan, we're in England, we're in the United States, we're in Hungary, we're everywhere. And yet all of these characters can find many, many things in common with each other, I think. And those kinds of stories just don't get old. And if one of the goals for the Booker Prize, I have no idea if this is true, but if one of them is we want to find books that could be like modern classics or one day be considered classic literature, these are wonderful contributions to that effort. Anyway, that's probably enough for me, just rambling on with a lot to say, but also nothing to say. just how I generally roll. I am still going to finish all of the books from the long list because from what I've read so far, they did a really great job in picking the books, in my opinion. Maybe when I do more of these, if I do more of them as the years go on, then I'll look back on this and think, yeah, they really did play it safe. But for now, for me, I'm having a great time and I'm really in awe. I wish that I had the talent to write like this, but I do not. Now that we know the shortlist, I think what I'm going to try to do is fit in Audition by Katie Kitamura before my copy of The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny arrives. And I'm finishing up a couple of books for book clubs this week. I'm reading Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's a reread. If a reread still applies when the last time you read it was when you were 13, I don't know. Technically it's a reread, but I don't remember anything about it other than I didn't like it. And then I'm also reading Watershed by Percival Everett, which I am really, really enjoying. It's my first Everett book. I do have a copy of James, but the book club chose Watershed. So yeah, I'm enjoying that a lot. I should be finishing both of those by today or tomorrow at the latest. And then I think my next video will probably be my recap. It might be in a different location or it might be a little bit late because I have to go to Texas. So depending, I will see you in my September reading recap video. If you haven't read any of these books, but you're intrigued, then definitely try them. They are not hard to read. They're not hard to get into. They all have something to say and I think invite a really great discussion, or even if that discussion is just with yourself. I've found them to be really great kind of reflective books, and that's always really rewarding. Bye. Oh wait, yeah, I always forget. Like and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Maybe one day that will feel natural and not like I'm holding out a bowl and asking you to give me some soup or something, but for now, that's what it feels like. Please forgive my awkwardness about it, but if you enjoyed the video, if you would like to see more from me talking about books, hopefully in a much more eloquent, structured way than this one, then like and subscribe. And I do at least one video a month, and I try to do two. Well, I'm going to try to do at least two, I should say. Okay, bye for real.